Let's now introduce to you the syntax for if statements. So now we talk about a single if statements, a single one, as opposed to multiple if statements. So be careful. All right. Later on, we're going to use example to really distinguish for you what really the difference is between single versus multiple if statement. But now we talk about single one. All right. This is the smallest or minimum size of the if statement you can write. Just if is a keyword over here. And then over here, if is a keyword, and then you have to have opening parentheses and also closing parentheses. And also some Boolean expression over here. So here, when we talk about Boolean expression, it's going to be a very foundational concept. We just introduced to you the Boolean data type, which means the value either true or false. So what does Boolean expression mean? That means any expression that can actually return or evaluate either true or false. Any expression that can give you either true or false, it is a Boolean expression. And there are typically two ways for you to really write Boolean expression. Either use a relational operator, like a less than or equal to, or equal. So these are the relational operators, which we spoke about already. And later, either this week or next week, we'll talk about logical operator as well. Those expression will also give you Boolean expression, right? Either relational or logical. Yeah, keep that in mind. And Boolean expressions here can be arbitrarily complicated. We'll see some complex one maybe a little bit later. Okay, and then after the Boolean expression, you want to make sure you have the closing parentheses. And also over here, you can see we got opening curly brackets and also closing curly brackets. I know that some of you who might be advanced, you might know already when you only got single line over here, you can actually omit the opening and also closing curly brackets. But I would say for now, I assume everybody is a beginner, so maintain good habits. Always, even if it's only a single statement you want to put under the branching, under the first branch over here, you always put the pair of curly brackets over here. I would recommend. All right. So now you got opening and curly over here, and whatever that's inside is sort of the body, B-O-D-Y, the body of this particular branch over here. And then inside over here, you can have as many statements as possible. Now, the statement here can either be primitive or compound. If it's only a primitive statement, for example, you can only have just a variable assignment over here to say x is assigned to 3. Or it can be a print statement, or maybe a return statement over here. However, when we talk about compound statement later, you can have nested if statement, right? We'll get there a little bit later. I just want to explain to you quickly the concept that we're going to go over in detail. All right, so this is really the smallest if statement you can write. Let me make a note for you, right? Always when you learn about the syntax, you want to learn by example and also to really see what's the smallest valid syntax I can write for this particular constructs. So let me note to you, the smallest if statements you can write. It simply goes like this. So let me just say this. So you have the if keyword, and also you got opening parentheses, and also closing parentheses, and whatever that's inside over here is going to be a Boolean expression. Okay, and then I would say maintain a good habits. Always you put opening curly brackets and also closing curly brackets, and over here you can put as complicated as you like for the body of the if statements. So this is so-called the body of if statements. For this particular branch. You can think about this body over here is related to this particular branch, meaning that if this particular branching condition is actually true, it holds, that means this body over here will be relevant for execution. All right, so that's the smallest if statement you can write. But now, what about larger one? If that's the smallest, what about larger one? All right, let's now go over to really extend this particular smallest or minimum if statement. You can write else if. Else if simply means over here if this particular first branching condition evaluate to false, in that case, I will bother to really evaluate the next branching condition in the if statement over here, right? So that's why I say it's optional. You may decide to use it or you may not, right? Depends. We're gonna show you examples to let you get more intuition about how to write if statements. And under this else if statement, you can see it for this particular branching condition over here, right? So this is the body of this particular branching condition, right? Just be consistent with the terminology. And also, you can have as many else if as you like, right? So now, here we talk about the smallest if statement, right? So now, think about the larger one. Larger if statements. What can be the larger one, for example? So now you can think about if over here, right? Assuming that you got something over here, and then you also put the body over here, right? I'll just put it in the same line, right? Well, of course, you got the opening and closing curly brackets. So now to really extend it, you can have else if, and also some Boolean condition over here. So this will be the second one. So when I underline this, that means these are keywords. You gotta spell them precisely, and of course there's a space in between. So this will be valid, or if you want to extend it further, you can just have another else if. You can just have another one. Sorry, let me just put it a little bit better. So there'll be else space if, and then some Boolean condition over here, and then curly brackets for the body for that particular branch, right? You can think about this part over here. This part is the body for this particular branch, and this part here is the body for this particular branch, and similarly this part here is the body for this particular branch, right? You got to be very careful about the visual connection between branches and their bodies. All right, you can have as many else if as you like. And let me just go back to the slides over here. As many as you like. You can either have 0 or more, right? Of the else if. Finally, right, let's say you got so many else if, and then the final part is called the else over here. This is, think about what's going to happen here. You only get to the else when all the preceding Boolean conditions over here, Boolean condition number 1, branch number 1, and also Boolean condition 2, all the way until the last one for the else if, all of them evaluate to false. In that case, you will fall into this particular like a safety net for default action. However, the else part over here does not need to be there. All right. So now that will be the second case over here. You can remember we talked about the second case over here. We can have as many else if as you like, right? And number 3, finally. So number 3, you can have another case over here. You can say, let me just write it. You can say if, okay, so that'll be this particular branch. And then let's say there's no else if, and then you simply got else. And then this will be another way to do it, right? So now you should really know that the body over here is really associated with this particular else. So that means this is like a default action. In this particular case, it's very easy because it simply means this condition here simply evaluate to false. In that case, you will execute this. If this condition here evaluate to true, you're going to execute this, right? Okay, final shape I want to show to you. We talk about 1, 2, 3, and number 4. Number 4 here, you can have something like this. If, okay, you got some condition over here, and then let's say this. You got else if, some condition over here, and then you got another one, let's say another else if. You can have as many as you like, including you just have none of the else if, right? Okay, let's say finally you also got, different from case number 3, you also got an else part. So in this case, you actually got this particular body is associated with else. This is associated with it, this is associated with it, and also this is associated with it, right? Number 4. So now this will be the longest if statement you can write. You can think about it, right? So this will be the longest you can write, or largest you can write. You can have as many else if, at least one, and then you can get else part as well. All right, exactly how things should be executed, I'll explain to you. That's to do with the meaning for this if statement. But syntactically, you can either be the smallest, only a single if, or it can be slightly longer. You can have as many ifs, else if as you like, or you don't have any else if, you just got the else. Or optionally, you simply don't have, you just have the else, or you can have the longest one over here. All right, you can see case number 2. Optionally, we simply don't have the else over here. All right, so these are all the cases. Let's now see exactly what the meaning is in order to explain if statement. For this particular one, for those of you who took maybe 10, 12, you might have seen some flowchart. We're not going to cover so heavily about flowchart. We only 2 occasions. One is to explain the if statements. The other one is to explain the meaning for loops, right? These are the only 2 occasions, right? Just know how to read it. If you took 10, 15, that's okay. It's very straightforward to really read it. So I'm also going to make the diagram available to you. So if this is a little bit too small for you, I apologize. But you can definitely download the PDF from your lecture site and then look at this diagram over here for the flowchart. Okay. Let me tell you quickly what you really need to pay attention to. The diamond shape over here, for example, over here, is about a branching condition. So we talk about kind of like a general structure over here. You can think about Boolean condition number 1, Boolean condition number 2, all the way to Boolean condition number n, right? Each of the diamond, okay? And then for each Boolean condition is a Boolean. So it can either be true or it can be false, right? Remember I said before, the body of the a particular branch is only relevant if the Boolean condition evaluate to true. So that's why you can see statement number 1 for statement number 1 and statement number 1.2. So they only are relevant if this particular Boolean condition is true. Similarly, you can see for Boolean condition number 2, if evaluate to true, so that means the body over here will be relevant, right? And then what about false, right? So you can think about it goes like this. If this Boolean condition evaluate to true, of course we execute the body of the if statement over here. What if evaluate to false? In that case, we simply go to the next branching condition. So now notice one thing here. We only move on to the red arrow if the Boolean condition in question is actually evaluate to false. Otherwise, we'll actually go for the other branch. We'll simply execute the body of the statement over here and then go all the way to, you can see over here, see my arrow cursor here, all the way to the end of the if statement, right? And so on, right? So just guiding you through the diagram here, you should really look at that closely. That really summarizes the behavior for the if statement. So what I will do now, let me go on to that. Let me just go over one more slide just to read over a little bit just about the guidance about interpreting the if statement or what's its meaning or semantics. And then I'm going to give you examples, lots of examples. So now consider a single if statement as consisting of, so now an if branch and also possibly empty. So if branch is really the minimum you can have, like a case number 1 I talked about, or you can have as many else if as you like, as many as you like. And then optionally, you can also have an else, all right, for default action. At the runtime, right? So this section here is going to summarize exactly how the if statement will be executed at runtime by Java. So now let me go over one by one, point by point. Branches of the if statement are executed from top to bottom. So what that means is, remember, okay, so this is a flow chart you have, right? So think about we are basically going to go for sequential execution. You can think about it's going to go this way. Think about the possible path. You're going to go here. Either you just go straight, all the way to the end. So that would be one possibility. If the branching condition always evaluate to false. Another possibility would be, let's say when you are going for this particular branching condition, somehow evaluate to true. In that case, you're going to execute the body of the if, and then go all the way to the end, ignoring all the other preceding branches, and then you're going to the end of the if statement. All right, that's basically what I meant by the top to bottom. There are some guiding principle you have to remember. Okay, so here we only evaluate the condition of a branch if those conditions of its preceding branches evaluate to false. What do I mean? Okay, what I meant was this. If somehow I'm evaluating this particular condition at the runtime, what does that mean? That means the preceding one over here must be false, because the only way, the only path you can reach over here is by here, and then that really corresponds to the false, right? So now, if I'm really at the runtime evaluating this particular branch over here, so what does that mean? That means none of the previous branches over here, and over here, and also over here, and over here, none of them actually evaluated true. That means you actually got a sequential execution all the way to the false branch, and then you kind of evaluate this branch. That's what that sentence really means. Okay? If I'm over here, and I'm telling you that some previous branch actually evaluate to true, that's actually contradictory. It's not possible, because let me prove it to you. Because if the previous branch actually evaluated to true, so that means they would have gone this way over here, bypass this particular branch. So it's not possible, right? Just notice that. So this sentence over here is a very important insight for if statement execution at the runtime. Finally, the first branch whose condition evaluated to true gets its body, so the code wrapped within the pair of curly brackets, I already talk about it, will be executed. So now you can think about the very first branch whose the very first branch which evaluated true. You're going to execute the body of that branch over there, and then go all the way to the end. You can see any branches after that, for example, any branches after that will be bypassed, simply ignored. All right, but we're going to see examples to really see exactly how things work in different cases. Okay, after this execution, all later branches are ignored, as I illustrated. All right. So that's about the general principle about the syntax for if statements, and also we use a flowchart over here to really show you how things go. But now let's be very precise about for each different case, and also I'm going to use a example program to show to you how things will go.